Every night at exactly 7:13 p.m., the same German Shepherd appeared outside their living room window. He wasn't barking for food. He wasn't seeking help. He wasn't lost. He pressed his paws against the glass and stared inside with desperate, pleading eyes as if trying to tell them something. At first, the family thought he belonged to a neighbor. Then they assumed he was just confused or lonely. But after their little boy mysteriously went missing 3 days earlier, the dog's sudden appearance became impossible to ignore. Each evening, he came again, tapping, scratching, whining, never breaking eye contact. The parents felt a growing chill every time they saw him. Something about his behavior wasn't random. The dog knew something. He'd seen something. And when the father finally decided to follow him, where the German Shepherd led them turned their blood cold. What was the dog trying to reveal? And why was he coming only after their son disappeared? Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The house felt unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that settles only after something has gone terribly wrong. Sarah sat on the edge of the couch, fingers trembling around the small blue hoodie she hadn't been able to put down since that morning. It still smelled like her son, like crayons, warm sunshine, and the faint hint of vanilla ice cream he always begged for after school. But now the scent felt like a knife, twisting deeper into her chest every minute that passed. Michael paced the living room in silent panic, his jaw clenched, his breath shallow, his eyes constantly darting to the front door, as if their 7-year-old would suddenly walk through it with that bright, innocent smile. But he didn't, and he hadn't for almost 9 hours. Police officers had come and gone. Drones had been deployed. Neighbors had formed search groups. Everyone had combed the woods, the creek, the school route, the nearby park. Everyone except the one person they needed most, their little boy. The sun dipped behind the trees, shadows spilling across the walls. That was always the worst moment. When daylight died, so did a piece of hope. Sarah wiped her tears, but they came back instantly. What if he's scared? She whispered, her voice breaking. What if he's crying for us? Michael swallowed hard. He'd asked himself the same question 1,000 times since sunrise. We're going to find him, he whispered, though even he didn't believe it. The house, once filled with laughter and tiny footsteps, now felt haunted by absence. His toys were still scattered on the rug. His cereal bowl from breakfast sat untouched in the sink. His drawings, crude stick figures holding hands, still clung to the refrigerator with bright magnets. Everything was exactly the same, except he was gone. And in that suffocating silence, as another hour slipped by with no news, neither of them realized something strange was about to happen. Something that would challenge everything they believed. Something that would begin with a sound no grieving parent could have expected, a faint, deliberate tap on the living room window. Sarah lifted her head first. The sound was so soft she wondered if she imagined it just a quick, sharp tap, like a fingernail against glass. Michael froze mid-step. They exchanged a look, both thinking the same thing. Maybe it was him. Maybe their son had come home and was too weak or frightened to knock properly. Michael rushed to the window, hope bursting through his chest, but when he pulled back the curtain, he didn't see a child. He saw a German Shepherd. The dog stood pressed against the glass, his paws planted firmly on the window pane, his nails clicking softly as he tapped again. His breath fogged the surface in short, urgent bursts. His ears were stiff, his fur bristled, and his dark eyes were locked onto Michael with unsettling intensity. Sarah's heart sank in disappointment, but then twisted in confusion. Whose dog is that? She whispered. Michael shook his head slowly. He'd never seen this dog before. And yet, there was something deliberate in the way the shepherd stared, not wild, not panicked, but focused, intent. The dog let out a low, frustrated whine, then tapped again twice, harder this time, as if demanding their attention. Sarah stepped closer, her fear momentarily overshadowed by curiosity. Why is he doing that? It's like he's trying to tell us something. Michael exhaled shakily. Dogs don't just walk up to houses and tap on windows, but the shepherd stayed there, unmoving except for his trembling paws and desperate stare. Not barking, not growling, just pleading, silent but fierce. A chill crept across Sarah's skin. Something felt wrong. Something felt intentional. And as the dog tapped once more urgently than before, both parents felt an inexplicable truth settling deep into their bones. This dog wasn't here by accident. He wanted them to follow. The next evening arrived with the same heavy dread that had been suffocating the house for days. Sarah hadn't slept. Michael barely ate. Every room felt darker, colder, emptier, as if the house itself understood their son was missing. They sat together on the couch, lost in the same nightmare loop of fear and uncertainty. when an all too familiar sound cut through the silence. Tap, tap. Tap. Sarah's heart dropped. No. It can't be, she whispered. Michael stood slowly, terrified of hope but unable to ignore it. He moved toward the window, each step heavy, and pulled the curtain aside. The German Shepherd was back. Same time. Same position. Same intense stare. Only this time, the dog's agitation had escalated. His paws struck the window harder, his nails leaving faint streaks on the glass. His breathing was heavier, his chest rising and falling urgently. He wasn't simply asking, he was insisting. Sarah moved beside Michael, her hand clutching his arm. Why would a dog come back? For us? 2 nights in a row. Michael swallowed, unable to answer. He's not lost. Dogs wander. They don't return to the same place at the same time unless they're trained, or unless they're trying to lead someone somewhere. The dog suddenly turned his head toward the yard, ears snapping upright as if listening to something distant. Then he looked back at them, eyes burning with urgency, tapping again faster this time. Almost frantic. Sarah felt her stomach twist. Michael, something's wrong. He knows something. The dog whined sharply, backed away a few steps, then strutted toward the edge of the lawn before stopping to glance over his shoulder, as if checking whether they were watching. As if begging them to follow. Michael and Sarah stood frozen, torn between fear and instinct, grief and suspicion. But deep inside, a quiet, terrifying realization began to take shape. This dog wasn't here by coincidence. He wasn't returning by habit. He was coming back with purpose. And with every tap, every whine, every pleading glance, he was telling them the same thing. He knew where their son was. The German Shepherd returned again on the 3rd night, but this time, he wasn't just tapping. He was frantic. Sarah almost dropped the cup in her hands when the rapid, sharp rattle echoed from the window. It wasn't the gentle, deliberate tapping they had heard before. It was urgent, desperate. Michael rushed to the living room, and when he pulled back the curtain, he felt his breath catch. The dog wasn't standing calmly anymore. His paws slammed against the glass, his nails scraping in quick, panicked motions. His ears were flattened, his body tense, muscles rigid like he was ready to sprint the moment the window opened. His eyes, those intense, intelligent eyes, were filled with unmistakable distress. Sarah stepped back instinctively, fear crawling up her spine. Michael, something's wrong with him. But Michael shook his head slowly. No, something's wrong out there. The dog barked once, sharp, explosive, the kind of bark that wasn't meant to scare, but to signal. Then he stopped, stepping back from the glass. He turned toward the yard, took several steps into the darkness, then looked back through the window, waiting, insisting. Sarah felt her knees weaken. He wants us to go. He keeps coming from the same direction. He's trying to lead us somewhere. Michael's stomach twisted. They had spent days searching with the police and neighbors. Every hour felt like another door closing. But now, this dog wasn't giving up. The shepherd suddenly sprinted a few feet across the grass, then halted again, turning his head, meeting their eyes through the glass with a look that felt painfully human. Follow me. The message was unmistakable. Sarah clutched Michael's arm. What if we're wrong? Michael whispered back, his voice cracking. What if we're right? The dog barked again, a deep, urgent command, and pawed at the ground as if drawing invisible arrows. The last of Sarah's doubts crumbled. This dog wasn't confused. He was trying to save someone. And deep in her heart, she knew exactly who it was, their missing son. The next morning, Sarah could barely shake the image of the dog's desperate behavior. She stood at the kitchen window, staring toward the trees where the shepherd always disappeared. Her mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Michael joined her, exhaustion etched across his face. I didn't sleep, Sarah admitted quietly. Neither did I, Michael replied. I keep thinking, why us? Why our window? Before Michael could finish, a knock came at the door. Their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Whitlock, stood outside, clutching a shawl around her shoulders, her expression tight and uneasy. I heard the barking last night, she said. 3 nights in a row. That dog keeps coming here. Sarah nodded, surprised. You've seen him before? Mrs. Whitlock hesitated, glancing nervously toward the woods. Yes, and not just recently. She lowered her voice. That dog. He used to belong to a family that lived near the old farmhouse past the ravine. Their child went missing years ago. The case was never solved. Sarah's heart dropped. Missing, like our son. The old woman nodded slowly. Ever since then, that dog roams these parts. Sometimes he leads hikers to lost pets or stranded animals. Some people say he senses danger long before anyone else. Others say he's still searching for the child he lost. Michael felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Are you saying he's leading us to something? Mrs. Whitlock looked him straight in the eye. I'm saying that dog shows up for a reason. He doesn't waste his time. And if he keeps coming to your window, he knows something you don't. The weight of her words sank deep into their chest. Suddenly, the distant sound of a single bark echoed from the woods, sharp, calling. Urgent. Sarah's breath caught. He was back. Michael didn't waste a second. The moment he heard that bark, he grabbed his jacket and sprinted toward the living room window. Sarah followed close behind, her breath trembling. When they peered outside, the German Shepherd was already there, standing at the exact same spot, staring directly at them through the glass. But this time, something was different. The dog wasn't tapping. He was pacing back and forth, his tail stiff, his ears alert, every step sharp and controlled like a soldier preparing for a mission. Then, suddenly, he stopped and stared up at the small security camera mounted above the porch. Michael frowned. Why is he looking at the camera? Sarah shook her head, confused. He's waiting. He wants us to check it. The idea seemed ridiculous, yet the dog didn't move. He kept his gaze locked on the camera, then on them, then on the camera again. A silent instruction. A message. Michael grabbed his phone and opened the security app with shaking fingers. It took a second to load, and during that second, the dog barked once, sharply, almost as if urging him to hurry. Finally, the footage appeared. Michael scrubbed back through last night's recordings. Hours of empty yard. Then suddenly, at exactly 7:13 p.m., the shepherd emerged from the darkness. Not wandering, not sniffing around. He walked straight toward their house. No hesitation. No detours. A direct line. Michael's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he watched the playback. The dog stood at the window, tapping softly at first. Then, something strange happened. In the reflection on the glass, the faint outline of the forest behind their house became visible just for a second. And something moved in that reflection. Something human. Michael froze. Sarah, look at this. She leaned in, her face paling. In the reflection, barely visible, a shadow darted between the trees. A person. The dog barked loudly outside, snapping them back to reality. He wasn't pacing anymore. He was pointing, head low, body angled, eyes fixed toward the woods. Michael felt his throat tighten. The dog wasn't showing them where he came from. He was showing them where their son had gone. For a long moment, Michael and Sarah simply stared at the trembling German Shepherd. His body was angled toward the dark tree line, his head lowered like an arrow pointing to a destination only he knew. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying a faint chill that made Sarah's breath hitch. Michael swallowed hard. He wants us to follow. He's been wanting that from the beginning. Sarah's eyes filled with fear. Into the woods, Michael. What if it's dangerous? The dog barked once, a sharp, commanding bark that echoed like a warning and a plea at the same time. He took several steps back, stopping just before the first row of trees, then turned his head, making eye contact with them in a way that felt painfully human. Michael, Sarah whispered, voice breaking. What if this is our only chance? Michael looked at her. She was terrified, but she was right. The police searches had slowed. The leads had gone cold. Their hope was draining by the hour. And now, in front of them, stood the one creature who clearly knew something they didn't. Michael inhaled deeply, grabbed a flashlight, and opened the back door. The German Shepherd didn't run. He waited, tail stiff, muscles tense. Like a guide leading them into a war zone he already understood. Sarah hesitated at the threshold, her hands shaking. Please, don't let this be a mistake. Michael squeezed her hand gently. If he knows something, we can't ignore it. They stepped outside together. The cold air wrapped around them instantly. The dog trotted ahead, glancing back every few seconds to ensure they were still behind him. The deeper they walked, the more unsettling the silence became. No crickets, no rustling, only the crunch of leaves beneath their shoes and the rhythmic, purposeful footsteps of their guide. Then, suddenly, the dog halted. His ears shot up. His body stiffened. A low growl rumbled from his chest, soft but full of warning. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm, her voice a trembling whisper. Something's out there. And the dog, never breaking his stance, slowly lifted his head toward a hidden path they hadn't noticed before, one leading deeper into the shadows. The hidden path was narrow, almost invisible, swallowed by thick brush and low-hanging branches. Had it not been for the German Shepherd standing firmly at its entrance, neither Sarah nor Michael would have noticed it existed at all. The dog looked back at them once more, eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight, then stepped onto the path with careful, deliberate strides. Michael raised his flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. The deeper they walked, the thicker the forest seemed to grow, as if the trees were leaning closer, listening to every step they took. The air felt heavier here, colder. Sarah hugged herself. I don't like this, she whispered. Why would our son be anywhere near this place? Michael had no answer, but the dog clearly did. He moved ahead with unwavering certainty, sniffing the ground occasionally, then continuing forward as if following a scent trail no human could ever detect. His growl came in short, low bursts as though warning whatever lay ahead that he wasn't afraid. A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness. Sarah froze. What was that? Michael tightened his grip on the flashlight, sweeping it across the trees. Nothing. Only shadows stretching endlessly into the distance. The shepherd's ears twitched. He let out another growl, deeper this time, and pressed forward, picking up his pace. Michael and Sarah hurried after him, fear quickening their steps. The path bent sharply, revealing a stretch of forest that looked untouched for years. Moss-covered logs, thick vines, patches of earth dug up recently as if someone had been there. Sarah spotted something near the base of a tree and gasped. Michael, is that? A small piece of red fabric clung to a branch, fluttering gently in the breeze. Michael's stomach dropped. That's from his jacket. The ground beneath their feet felt like it'd vanish. Their son had been here. Recently. The shepherd barked loud. Urgent hands sprinted deeper into the trees, forcing them to follow. Ahead, through the tangled branches, something began to take shape. A structure, hidden, old, and surrounded by shadows thick enough to drown out every sound. Sarah's voice trembled. Michael, there's something out there. And the dog, standing before the dark shape, growled with a warning that sent chills down their spines. The structure loomed before them like a shadow carved out of the night, a small, weather-beaten shack half buried behind wild vines and overgrown brush. Its wooden planks were warped and blackened with age. The windows were boarded from the inside, and the door hung crookedly on rusted hinges. It didn't look abandoned. It looked hidden. The German shepherd halted a few feet from the entrance, his body rigid, fur bristling along his spine. A deep growl vibrated from his chest, low and cautious, as if warning them that whatever lay inside was not to be taken lightly. Michael raised the flashlight slowly. The beam swept across the peeling boards, catching a faint, fresh scratch mark near the doorframe, long, jagged, unmistakably human. His pulse quickened. Someone's been here, he whispered. Sarah clutched his arm. Please tell me he's not inside. Before Michael could respond, the shepherd stepped forward and scratched the dirt in front of the door once, twice, 3 times, then looked back at them with pleading eyes. Pressing his nose against the crack in the wood, he sniffed rapidly, whining softly. He's scenting something, Michael murmured. Something close. A sudden thump echoed from inside the shack. Sarah gasped and stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. Michael froze, gripping the flashlight so tightly his knuckles whitened. Another sound followed, faint, muffled, but unmistakably human. A weak cry. Michael's heart stopped. Sarah's knees buckled as she leaned into him, tears already spilling. That's Michael, that's him, she sobbed. The shepherd barked once, fiercely, slamming his paws against the door, demanding action. Michael stepped forward, adrenaline flooding his body. Stand back, he whispered. He grabbed the door handle. It was locked from the outside. Michael's hands shook violently as he gripped the rusted lock. It was old, but solid to solid for him to break with his bare hands. Panic rose in his chest like a wave. Their son was on the other side of that door. He could hear him now, faint, soft whimpers drifting through the cracks like dying echoes. Please hurry, Sarah whispered, her voice cracking in terror. The German shepherd was relentless. He growled and slammed his body against the door, pawing furiously as if he could tear it apart himself. His nails scraped wood, each strike a violent message. Open it now. Michael scanned the area frantically. A broken metal rod lay half buried beneath leaves near the shack. He grabbed it, wedged it into the lock, and twisted with all the strength panic could give him. The rod bent. Michael cursed under his breath but didn't stop. He twisted again, and this time, something snapped. The lock cracked open. The door swung inward with a tortured creak. A small figure sat curled in the corner of the dim, musty room. Their son. His tiny arms wrapped around his knees, his head resting against the wall. Dirt smeared across his face. His clothes torn. His little body trembling. Sarah's cry pierced the silence. She rushed inside, dropping to her knees so hard the impact echoed. Baby, look at me, she begged, brushing the hair from his forehead with shaking hands, slowly. Their son lifted his head. Mom, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Yes, sweetheart, it's me. We're here now. Her voice cracked into sobs as she pulled him into her arms. The boy clung to her weakly, burying his face in her shoulder. I was scared, he choked out. I didn't know if you'd find me. Michael knelt beside them, tears streaming. We're here. You're safe? We've got you. Behind them, the German shepherd stepped inside, nose pressed gently against the boy's arm. The child let out a shaking breath and reached toward the dog with trembling fingers. You found me, he whispered. The shepherd lowered his head, almost bowing. He had done far more than find him. He had refused to leave without him. Michael gently lifted his son into his arms, feeling how light, how fragile he had become. The boy's breathing was shallow, uneven, as though every inhale cost him strength he didn't have. Sarah held his hand, unable to stop crying, her thumb brushing away the dirt on his cheek. But beneath the relief, fear still pulsed. "What happened to you?" Michael whispered. The child swallowed, his voice shaking. I was walking home, and a man grabbed me. He covered my mouth. I couldn't scream. He brought me here." His small fingers curled into Michael's shirt. He locked the door and said I had to stay quiet, or he'd come back. Sarah gasped, her heart twisting so tightly it hurt. "Oh God. Oh my baby." The German shepherd stood guard at the doorway, blocking the entrance completely. His stance rigid, protective. Even now, he checked the shadows like he expected danger to return at any moment. The boy reached toward the dog with a trembling hand. He found me on the first night. I heard something scratching at the door. I thought it was the bad man coming back." His voice cracked. "But it was him." Sarah's tears fell faster. "You saw the dog?" The boy nodded weakly. He pushed his nose under the door. "He stayed outside all night. I wasn't scared when he was there." Michael exchanged a stunned look with Sarah. The shepherd had been keeping vigil. The boy continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "He tried to dig. He tried to push the door. I heard him scratching and whining. And on the second night, he left. But I heard him bark far away." He blinked up at his father. "I think he went to get you." The room spun with realization. This dog hadn't been wandering blindly. He had come to their house with intention, urgency. He knew the boy couldn't escape. He knew time was running out. He came back. The boy whispered, clinging to his mother. "He kept coming back. I hoped you follow him." Sarah kissed the top of his head, sobbing. "We followed, sweetheart. We followed him." The shepherd stepped closer, resting his head gently against the boy's leg. A soft, almost relieved whine escaped him, like he had finally completed the mission he refused to abandon. Michael placed a shaking hand on the dog's back. "You saved him," he whispered, and deep in the dog's steady eyes, it was clear he had known the truth long before anyone else. Michael scooped his son into his arms and backed toward the door of the shack, his heart pounding with a mixture of terror and relief. The night air hit them sharply as they stepped outside, but it felt cleaner, safer than the suffocating darkness inside. Sarah wrapped her arms protectively around their son the moment they reached the clearing. "We need to call the police," Michael said, reaching for his phone with trembling hands. Before he could dial, the German shepherd's ears shot up. He spun toward the woods, barking sharply 1, 2, 3 times, each bark louder and more urgent than the last. Sarah stiffened. "Is he coming back?" Michael didn't want to imagine it, but the dog's stance said everything. He wasn't warning them. He was preparing to defend them. Michael hit the emergency number, voice shaking as he relayed their location. "We found him. Our son, he's alive. Please send help." The operator's voice instructed them to stay put. Within minutes, faint sirens echoed through the forest, growing louder, closer, stronger. Flashing lights soon cut through the trees as officers rushed toward them with stretchers, medical kits, and shouting urgency. The German shepherd backed away slightly, but never took his eyes off the woods. An officer knelt beside the boy. "He's dehydrated, but responsive. We need to get him to the hospital now." Sarah held her son tighter for one last moment before placing him gently on the stretcher. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "You're safe now. Mommy's right here." As paramedics carried him away, Michael turned to the dog, his throat tight, voice barely steady. "You led us here. You protected him." The shepherd blinked slowly, and looked away as if embarrassed by the gratitude. A detective approached, stunned. "We've been searching for days. And a dog found him?" Michael nodded. "Not just found. He never left him." As officers moved toward the shack to secure the scene, the shepherd stepped forward, standing tall, vigilant. He wasn't done yet. And what they were about to discover would reveal just how deep his loyalty truly ran. As officers secured the shack and combed through the surrounding woods, the German shepherd lingered near the family, close enough to protect, yet distant enough to remain alert. His eyes followed every movement, every sound, every rustle between the trees. Sarah noticed a faint scar along his neck, a thin line of healed skin that hinted at an old, painful memory. A detective approached Michael quietly. "Your boy is safe, but there's something you should know." He gestured toward the dog. "That shepherd. He's familiar." Sarah frowned. "Familiar how?" The detective sighed. "Years ago, a family lived near the old farmhouse past the ravine. They had a young son around your boy's age. One night, he disappeared. Same pattern. No leads. No closure. He paused, voice lowering. They owned a German Shepherd. This one. Sarah's breath caught. Are you sure? We scanned his microchip. The detective nodded. Same dog. Michael stared at the shepherd, his heart twisting. What happened to his family? The detective's expression darkened. After their son vanished, the parents fell apart. They moved away, too broken to stay. They tried taking the dog, but he kept escaping. Every time he returned here, searching, barking at travelers, leading hikers out of dangerous trails, bringing lost pets home, he exhaled. He never stopped looking for his boy. Sarah felt tears rise again, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. That's why he came to us, she whispered. He recognized it. Another child. Gone. Michael knelt slowly, reaching his hand toward the shepherd. You believe someone could still be saved? The dog stepped forward, pressing his head gently into Michael's palm. A soft whine escaped his throat, not a sound of fear, but one of release, as if he had been carrying a weight for years. This time, he hadn't failed. He hadn't arrived too late. He hadn't lost another child. He had found one, and he had brought him home. The hospital room glowed softly with warm light, a calm contrast to the nightmare of the last 3 days. Their son lay asleep in the bed, his small chest rising and falling steadily, and for gently feeding into his arm. Sarah sat beside him, stroking his hair, whispering prayers of gratitude under her breath. Michael stood near the window, watching the sunrise melt into shades of orange and gold colors that felt like hope finally returning. But the German Shepherd sat closest of all. Right beside the bed, head resting near the boy's hand, eyes half closed, yet alert in that quiet, loyal way only a dog understands. Nurses passed by, some wiping their eyes, some whispering about the incredible rescue. Word had already spread about the mysterious shepherd who refused to give up, about how he led grieving parents through the woods, about the child he brought home when time was slipping away. A doctor entered with a small smile. Your son is strong, he said. He'll recover fully. Sarah's tears flowed again, this time with pure relief. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. But the doctor shook his head softly. Don't thank us. His eyes traveled to the dog. Thank him. The shepherd lifted his head slightly, ears twitching at the sound of gratitude. The boy stirred, opening his eyes just enough to see the familiar shape beside him. His small fingers moved, brushing gently against the dog's fur. You stayed, he murmured. The dog responded with a soft whine. Michael approached, lowering himself to the dog's level. He doesn't have a family anymore, he said quietly to Sarah. Not one that stayed, anyway. Sarah looked at the shepherd, at his scars, his tired eyes, his unbroken spirit. He does now, she whispered. Michael nodded, emotion tightening his throat. If he'll have us, he can stay. The shepherd blinked slowly, his tail sweeping the floor once, just once, but with a weight that felt like acceptance. He had lost a child once. He had saved another. And now, finally, he was home.